I don't know if this is efficient. Is this efficient, or should I just stick with a PowerPoint? Okay, so I'll make sure to find how to increase the font here. But okay, let's see. So let's say I want to define an array of integers. So the single dimensional array is exactly what you know from Java, so there is no point to repeat it here. So let's see how the difference between the jagged array and the what's called the two-dimensional array. So let's say int. So one set of square brackets, and it has comma to indicate that there are 2 dimensions there. So I'm just gonna call this two-dimensional array. All right, and then I'm gonna initialize it with some values here. So 3, 4, 5. So that's the first row. And now in in C#, just like Java and JavaScript, empty spaces don't have any meaning. So it's I can put any empty spaces the way I want in order to organize the code in a way that I find it readable. So if I want to keep it in one line, fine. I want to break it down into multiple lines, fine. The empty spaces don't have any meaning. Okay. Now here's the thing. So now this is the first row, right? Now if I try to create the second row with a different type of elements, it won't allow me. Because a two-dimensional array is like a matrix. Okay, it's like a matrix. The number of elements in the rows, in each of the rows must be the same. Okay. Now, so I initialize it with 3 elements for the first row. Then every row has to have 3 elements as well. Okay. Now, how can I access any of the elements? Let's say I want to access this 4. Okay. So it might be easier to see if we put it in a different line. So this is how it would look like if it was like a matrix. So this would be row 0, and this would be column 0, right? So if I want to access element 4, then I should be using the name of the array and one set of square brackets, and then use the index of the row and the index of the column. Okay? Now, yes. Yeah, it's a syntax. No, because this is one row, and then this is the second row. You have to split them. Okay? Now, if I want to have an array of arrays, now see, if I try to print, let me try to print here. Console.write. So two-dimensional of 0. Now, if it was a jagged array, it would allow me to print the first row. If it was, but it is not. So let's see if I can print the first row. No, I can't print it by itself. Now I have to create a loop inside a loop and print it element by element. Because it's not an array of arrays, it's an array of two-dimensional elements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so if I want, yeah, so I can access element by element with the 2 indices. Okay, either to read or write. Yes. Sorry? Say it again. Dynamic? No, arrays are not dynamic. There is a concept similar to the array list. We're gonna talk about it later. These arrays are static. Yeah. All right. Now, what if? You have to initialize it before you use it. Well, the size is initialized. So when I try initialize it, the size is inferred automatically.
Oh, it's 2.
Okay, so this is similar to like saying new and then specify the size like this. So 2 rows and 3 columns. Okay. All right, what if I want an array for arrays? So, and I want an array that has, every row has different number of elements. So that's what we call the jagged array. Okay, so the way we define it, so it's an array of arrays, right? And the syntax of creating an array, any array, it would be the data type, and then followed by a parenthesis. So don't autocorrect it. Don't correct it. Okay, it's just a type. We should put the type here, followed by parentheses. Followed by brackets, right? That's the syntax of any array. Now, if we want to define an array of array, then the type that we're talking about is in itself as an array. So the type itself would be the data type with the square brackets of that. Okay, so this is the array, and this is an array of it, of this array. Okay. Now we cannot initialize both sizes because it's supposed to be jagged, so each array should have its own size. So if we want to initialize, we can initialize the first element. The first dimension only. So I'm gonna call this jagged. Okay, now I'm gonna define it, new int, and the two sets of brackets. Now I can initialize the size of the first one. So how many rows do we have? Let's say we want to have 3 rows. Now I cannot initialize the size of the columns here. Okay, now how can we initialize the size of the column? So I would have to initialize it one by one. So jagged equal new int, let's say of 3. So the first row has 3 elements. And now I can refer to the rows by themselves because it's an array of arrays, right? And then let's say jag of 1. So let's say I want this to be new int of 5. Now, what if I tried to use the initialization, the shorthand initialization? So let's say I want this the third element here to be initialized to 5, 4. So the direct initialization like this doesn't work with it when it's jagged array. So I will have to say a new int like this and then say, and instead of 5, I want this to be 2. All right, and then I can initialize it. Okay, yes. Like this, like this, array of 2-dimensional arrays. Sorry?
Yeah.
2D array that holds array. I mean, you can have an array of 2D arrays, but I didn't try a 2D array of arrays. I didn't try that. But you can try it. You can try it. I can't say no. I didn't try it. But this is possible. Like you can have an array of 2-dimensional arrays, but of course you need to fix the initialization accordingly. But I never tried the other way around. All right. So there are just few things, and we're gonna leave early today, so I'm just welcome. Okay. So, all right. So these are gonna be really handy when we talk about collections of elements and stuff like that when we start the gaming. And the flow control, very, very similar. I mean, almost identical to what you know from Java, so we don't have to go through the details of it. So the if-else statements, exactly how it works in Java. Switch case, exactly how it works in Java. The for loop, the regular for loop, and the while loop work exactly how it is in Java. There's one thing that is slightly different, the for each. Now you see, in Java, there is the concept that's called the for each loop, right? But the syntax itself doesn't have the each, right? It's just you write for, and then you loop over elements and it doesn't work on arrays in Java, right? It works only on dynamic arrays, like lists. Now here, it is an actual for each. Actually, a lot of people accuse Microsoft of always copying, and this is partially true, but sometimes they contribute. So this for each concept was introduced by Microsoft, all right, and then the other people, like other languages took it, like copied from it. So it wasn't in Java before C# was introduced. So they call the concept the same thing. They call the concept for each, but in Java you just type for. In C# you type the for each. And then the syntax, instead of having initializer then condition and iterator like the regular for loop, you would define the element. Okay, so the element type and then the name and then the collection. So it works on arrays and other types of collection as well. Okay. Now here, the var keyword can be really handy because if you're not sure about the type or you might be confused about the type, you don't have to type the actual data type here. You just type var and it will be inferred automatically. So here's some comparison. Between the different types of arrays and how the for each loop would work on them. Okay, so this is the one-dimensional array. Now, just like you know from Java, if you surround the block with curly brackets, then you can have multiple statements inside the block. I'd recommend that you always put the brackets even though you have one, because sometimes it can get confusing. Okay, so but if you want to eliminate the brackets when it's only one statement like this, it should be fine. Okay, now see here, sometimes I use the var to as the dynamic type, and it will automatically infer what type it should be from looking into the array, the types of the array. Okay, and then here's the two-dimensional array. Now, if you loop over the two-dimensional array, it loops over it element by element. Okay, not row by row. Okay, now here, if you loop over the jagged array, it would loop row by row, but you won't be able to print it right away. So the printing, it will just print the name of the type. So if you want to print the elements within the row, you can have another loop that loops over the columns. Okay, so that's also this concept is not completely new. It's just that in Java it doesn't work on arrays, but in C# it does work on arrays. All right. Now, any questions? All right, so that's all what we'll see you next week.